Konbanwa, Pat Tokuyama here, creator of All Day I Eat Like a Shark and the new Japanese cooking club, all about plant-based Japanese food. So today what we're going to be doing is making a meatless mapo tofu. Mapo tofu is a classic Chinese dish it's a Szechuan dish, so it's very spicy. And I actually have some Szechuan peppercorns here, which if you've never seen before, they look like regular black peppercorns, but I guess the difference is that these have a numbing sensation, which you may or may not like. I personally don't like it very much, so if I do use these peppercorns, I go very conservatively. And if you've never used or eaten Szechuan peppercorns before, they are very spicy, but spicy in a different way. So not necessarily hot spicy, but more of a medicinal spicy. So they cause like a numbing sensation in your mouth and in your throat and even in your stomach if you're eating that much. And some people may enjoy that and some people may not. I happen to be one of the people who does not enjoy that sensation. But the good news is for the Japanese dish, the Japanese version that we're going to be making today, it actually does not call for any Szechuan peppercorns. So hopefully that will relieve you in some sort of, I guess, way if you were concerned about that being an issue. And you can always attenuate the spice as well by using a little bit less of the tobanjian, which is the red pepper paste that we're going to be using today. The Japanese version comes in many different forms. In fact, this one here that we're going to be using comes in a glass jar, and some of it may appear bright red. So this one's just straight chili, but sometimes it might have coloring added to it, so it might be a little bit brighter than usual. So this one comes in a tube. And you should be able to find this on Amazon. If you don't have a Japanese market that is well stocked or a Chinese market, both of these are easily found on Amazon.com, as well as this tenmenjian. This is another critical ingredient for the variation that I make. This is something that you can use for noodles and other stir fries, but this is basically a noodle seasoning. And you can also get this online as well or at your local Asian market. And then here, I have black bean paste. So this is Chinese black bean paste. Sometimes I use tochi, which is similar to this. They both contain black bean, which is a very salty and umami-filled bean. This one happens to be packed in oil. It's very oily. I usually try not to include the oil when I'm using this. Those are going to be 3 of the key ingredients to getting the correct Japanese mapo tofu flavor in this dish. The 4th ingredient is shoyu, Japanese soy sauce, and we're just going to be using a couple tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. We're going to be using a total of 3 tablespoons of the tenmenjian, and then 2 tablespoons of tochi or black bean paste, and then also about 3 tablespoons or a little bit more if you like it spicy of the tobanjian. Because we are going to be making a different variation that is in my tofu cookbook, Tofu Ryori, we're going to be using smoked paprika to add a little bit of a very subtle smoky flavor. Also a couple tablespoons of this ginger garlic paste. So this is 50-50 ginger and garlic. This is something that I use whenever I make Indian cuisine or Indian food, depending on the region of cuisine or region of India that I'm making that food from. So in the north, the Punjabi style, a lot of the dishes call for ginger and garlic. So I usually make a very large batch of ginger and garlic, and I just basically puree it into a paste. So that's what this is. And you can actually use it for various stir fries and even Korean food on top of Japanese food and Indian food. So I usually make a very big jar. As you can see, this is about 16 ounces, so 2 cups worth. And then for the additional seasoning, for this mapo tofu dish, we're going to be using about 1.5 cups of vegetarian stock. So this is the Better Than Bouillon brand that I use. It comes in a glass jar, and you can find this at your grocery store. It should be pretty easy to find, and again, if it's not at your store, you can get it on Amazon. It's going to be at full strength, so this is 1.5 teaspoons in about 1.5 cups of water. And then here, I have our magical ingredient. It's a whole grain, which has been, I guess, cut up. It's bulgur. If you've never heard of bulgur before, this is what it looks like. It's a grain, so it's the same, it's like a type of wheat. You can use it for other grain dishes. You can put it on salads, which I often do. A lot of Middle Eastern dishes call for this ingredient, and that's gonna be our protein. So the good thing about using this, if you've never used bulgur before, is one, that it has a lot of protein in it. It has a lot of fiber because it's a grain and other nutrients. And then at the same time, because traditionally mapo tofu contains pork, which we're not using, this has a similar texture to ground pork because these little grains are broken up into small pieces. So if you don't want to use bulgur, another thing that you can use instead of the bulgur grain are mushrooms, so shiitake mushrooms, for example, king mushrooms, any kind of a meaty mushroom that doesn't really have too strong of a flavor. You just have to chop it up into little bits. That would give you a similar I guess texture as the bulgur or ground meat. And then here I have a couple blocks of soft tofu with the excess water removed, a cup and a half of some green onions, which I have just coarsely chopped. And I think with that, those are all of the ingredients that we're going to need. We're also going to be needing some starch, which we're going to put into a slurry. So whenever you use starch for a stir fry, you always want to reconstitute it in some water so that it's suspended and mixed in. Otherwise, if you add it to your hot pan or pot without stirring it up and making it dissolve evenly in the liquid, it's going to clump. Key point right there. So we're going to use anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on how thick you like your mapo tofu sauce. And with that, we can go ahead and get started. So those are all the ingredients. So I'm going to turn on my little hot pot here. So in case you're wondering, the reason that we are using smoked paprika is that it provides a little bit of a smoky flavor. Similar to what you would get if you have browned some pork. I guess you could call it a trick if you're used to cooking vegan or vegetarian dishes where you're trying to avoid meat. And the recipe calls for bacon or pancetta, both of which have smoky flavors because they're cured. Paprika is a good alternative to using that to get the same or similar kind of a flavor. Alternatively, you can also use liquid smoke, which I was considering using, but I haven't tried that one yet. But liquid smoke is the same stuff that they use for beef jerky. If you make beef jerky, you may be familiar with those, but if you don't, basically it comes in like a little bottle and you just add a few drops to whatever it is that you're using. So first I use the liquid smoke, not only for beef jerky, but if I'm making split pea soup, for example, or other dishes that would require a smoky nuance to it. All right, so I think this is just about heated through. So what we're going to do is throw on a few tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. If you guys know me, I always use extra virgin olive oil because I love the peppery flavor. Even though it's going to be kind of masked in this dish, it doesn't matter because the olive oil is good for you. So I'm just going to saute some of the tenmenjian first with the black bean paste. Usually if you're going to be using meat, you'd be sauteing that first and browning it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out here. And because tofu is a cooked product, we don't need to cook it. We just need to make sure that it's heated through. So there's tenmenjian, and then this is the black bean paste. You can see it's very black. And the tenmenjian almost looks kind of like a ketchup, but black, and it smells a little bit more like soy sauce. If you've ever had ketchup manis, which is like an Indonesian style ketchup, a black ketchup, kind of reminds me of that. And then for the tobanjian and then the shoyu, the soy sauce, we'll be putting that at the very end. And then we're also going to add in some of these onions here, get those softened up. I usually like to save some of the green onions to top on the mapo tofu once it's finished. And then here we're going to just put in a couple tablespoons of the ginger garlic paste. And as soon as this stuff gets nice and fragrant, we can add in all the other ingredients. If you thought mapo tofu was difficult to make, hopefully this will change your mind about that because it's very simple. It doesn't take that long to make at all. All right, so now we're going to put in the tobanjian. Do about 3 tablespoons, which is basically this entire thing. I like my mapo tofu spicy. Get all that goodness in there. And I'm going to measure out about 1.5 tablespoons of this is cornstarch. Just going to eyeball it. All right, and now I'm going to add in the bulgur. This is about a heaping cup's worth. So I'm just going to make sure that this is heated through. And then we're going to put on a little bit of the paprika, the smoked paprika, just a few dashes. You don't want to put too much. It's going to throw off the flavor of the dish. And for the starch, like I mentioned, this is about 1.5 tablespoons. I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons and stir it up. And just use this same little spoon here. And as soon as this is stirred up, we can go ahead and top the bulgur mixture with the vegetable stock. And then the last thing will be to put in the tofu and fold it into the sauce. So depending on the type of tofu that you're using, or depending on if you didn't remove the excess water, it might be a little bit more fragile. So you have to be careful when you add it in. Unless you want to break your tofu pieces, which sometimes I do. We're going to add in the vegetable stock now. That's 1.5 cups. And then we can add in the starch slurry. And as soon as this begins to thicken up, that's when we can add in our tofu pieces. So this has been going on medium heat, and I'll keep it at that until it's finished. So you'll notice right away that the sauce has started to thicken up. Starch usually takes a certain temperature to activate, so you may notice that if your heat isn't hot enough or high enough, it's not going to thicken up. But this is already nice, starting to get nice and thick right here. You can see the center is turning into almost like a gravy, and gradually the outsides will start to thicken as well. So these are two 14-ounce blocks. I know tofu comes in many different sizes. It's very thick, as you can see, almost like gravy now. And these are two 14-ounce blocks. Obviously, if you have a 19-ounce block or anything different, you're gonna have to use a little bit more or a little bit less to compensate for the amount of sauce, unless you like a super saucy mapo tofu, which I do. But this for me is the ratio that I like. So I'm just gonna cut this into, I guess, 1/2 inch by 2-inch cubes. These are gonna be fatter cubes. Sometimes I like to make a variation on the size and cut them into small 1/4-inch cubes or maybe 1/2-inch cubes, as opposed to thicker rectangles like we're doing today. It's totally personal preference. And at this point, we're done. All we gotta do is add in the tofu until it's heated through and serve it with some rice. Super simple, super delicious, packs tons of flavor, and has no meat. So you might be in for a surprise. You thought mapo tofu would taste good without meat. So I'm just adding in all of the tofu pieces, and we're just going to gently fold in the sauce. And then if you like additional heat or flavor, you can also top this with a little bit of sansho pepper, which is a Japanese peppercorn. You can use red pepper, of course, or even the Szechuan peppercorn if you really like that stuff. All right, so I'm going to gently fold this in. And sansho pepper, if you never had that, it comes in usually comes in like a green bottle. It adds a very nice aromatic character to your food without being overly spicy. So there's nothing quite like it. You got to try it for yourself. If you've never had it before, maybe that'll be something that you like. Hey guys, so my battery on the camera ran out. I guess I didn't charge it, so that's why I'm on this screen at this angle. But basically, we have finished our dish, and all I'm going to do at this point is serve it in the replay and in my next video. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your week ahead of you. So, 気をつけてね. Take care. Bye bye.